Hello, I'm Rachel Williams.
And I'm Amber Richards.
And we are two pediatric emergency medicine physicians here today to share our thoughts about preparing for neonatal critical care patients. Everyone, including pediatric emergency physicians, freak out a little bit on the inside, and our heart rate goes up when we hear there is a newborn on the way to the hospital. The key is to be prepared and to know the tools that you have to rely on to alleviate some of that stress and potential for error during these situations. We have nothing to disclose regarding this presentation. The learning objectives for this asynchronous module include the ability to locate and use the equipment necessary for neonatal resuscitation, to demonstrate how to perform initial steps of newborn stabilization, and to review NRP and the elements of MRSOPA for corrective ventilation in a newborn. You are alerted that an EMS crew is 2 minutes out with a mother who delivered an infant in the ambulance and the newborn is in distress.
Yeah, EMS en route with mother and full-term newborn. Infant was born precipitously in the ambulance just now. Infant appears limp and blue with a heart rate of about 70. We're about 2 minutes out.
We have a full-term baby born precipitously in the back of the ambulance about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, so they were full term. Do they have good tone?
They do not.
Are they breathing?
They're not.
Okay, let's get the baby down.
Preparedness is a combination of making sure that the physical space is set up with the equipment that you need, as well as the fact that you and your team are mentally prepared for what is to come. You and your team have the knowledge and the skill, but we're going to go over some things to hopefully make your life easier during these situations.
Preparing your mind. Prior to arrival, attempt to obtain more information from EMS. The more you know ahead of time, the more prepared you and your team can be in terms of equipment, medications, and algorithms for care. In this case, try to get the gestational age, prenatal care, and any maternal comorbidities that EMS might know. As we all know, in a stressful situation, it can be hard to recall all of the numbers and dosings that you have learned. And fortunately, you don't have to have them all memorized. Using standardized tools can help reduce errors and cognitive load. In this case, you want to have access to NRP algorithms, a newborn vital sign table, APGAR scoring, and charts for newborn equipment sizing and medication dosing, be it physical cards or charts or an app on your electronic device. Smartphones are great, but can also be frustrating. There are multiple apps that provide similar information, such as eBroslo or PDStat. Make sure everyone in the room is using the same system. Another issue with phone apps is that only one person can see the information and the phones will lock. If you have time before the patient arrives, write down anticipated dosages and size of equipment on a clipboard or the bed sheets or a whiteboard to eliminate any technology troubles.
Next, you need to prepare your team. Communication. This one seems like a no-brainer, but communication is one of the most important aspects of medicine, but even more so in neonatal cases because people are nervous, tensions and emotions are higher, and it's more chaotic. Therefore, it is of utmost importance to have good communication strategies to rely on. If there is time before the patient arrives, identify the providers in the room by name and role. During the resuscitation, use people's names when giving directions. This allows people to focus on what is being asked of them and prevents other people from interrupting their tasks unnecessarily. Try ahead of time to prepare and designate individuals for IV access, medication administration, airway, CPR, and any other necessary tasks.
My name's Dr. Richards and I'm going to be leading the resuscitation. This is Dr. Crane. He's going to be our airway doctor. This is Jolene. She's our pharmacist. She's going to assist with preparing aliquots of medication and making sure that we have the correct dosages. This is Kay. She is our social worker. She's going to be our family liaison and go between and keep the family updated as much as possible. Mackenzie is our tech. In addition to assisting to dry and stimulate the baby, after that's done, she's going to help us clear away the wet linens and then get the baby on the monitor with the goal to get the pulse ox on the right upper extremity and apply a 3-lead ECG monitor. Charlie is going to be our primary nurse who's going to work on establishing IV access when the baby arrives. Additionally, he will be the one who is administering any medications that we might need. And then this is Mackenzie, who is one of our other nurses, who is going to be our recorder and keep us on track in terms of time for our resuscitation algorithm and APGAR scores.
Another important thing in these resuscitations is to call out what you are treating and get everyone on the same page. Clear and concise language is key. Utilize closed-loop communication to minimize errors. Announcing where you are in your algorithm and next steps are important to make sure that the team is on the same page. Summarize what has been done and what the next steps and priorities are for the team. Summarizing for the room can be helpful, especially if people have had to go in and out of the room during the resuscitation. Now we will review some of the tips on how to prepare your space and demonstrate basic NRP resuscitation for when your patient arrives.
Hi everyone, my name is Charlie. I'm a nurse here at Maine Medical Center in the emergency department. We're going to show you how to get ready for neonatal resuscitation. So we just got word that EMS had a precipitous delivery en route here, and the baby is on their way with mother. So the first thing we're going to do is get our adult stretcher completely out, because this is going to be the room that we're going to put the infant in. So we're going to bring our panda warmer that we keep in one of our rooms over to the middle of the room so that the infant can be right in the center of everything, and we're going to get it turned on. Our panda warmer here actually has 2 switches that you'll need to put in, and it does need to be plugged in to activate both of them. The first one is on the back side here, and then the second one is on the front. It was already on, sorry guys. So as it's turning on and powering up, the first thing that you'll need to do is admit the baby, and this will go through after the cycle starts. It'll hit admit baby, and then this will be able to show you all of the monitor, and you can control their temperature, have a pulse ox that's attached to them that'll display right here, and determine whether or not you want to do manual heating or go on baby mode, which you can set the temperature that you want them to be at right on it. So we wanted to show you a closer up video of the panda warmer, since it is a multi-step process to turn it on. So on the back next to the plug is the first step that you'll hit, and then on the front next to the screen. At that point you'll be able to admit the baby and do the AFBAR scores. The other functions that are great about this is when they come in intuitively with an adult, you put the head of the bed next to the airway wall, but with this, we actually want to place the head of the infant away from the monitor. That way, if you need to do any procedures, or if the baby starts to code or needs a definitive airway, you can actually lift up and lower the side rail so that you can get directly to the head. And then there's a footboard on the bottom that can raise and lower the panda warmer so that it's more ergonomic for the rest of the staff. The nice thing about the panda warmer is that it is a self-contained unit, so you can do suction and oxygen administration directly from the console, so you can just do everything with in the center of the room and not worried about being tethered to a wall. We're going to set up our equipment, and I'm going to have all of my IV access. I'm going to have Mastisol in case they're sweaty or wet, so that the tegaderms will be able to attach. If we're not able to get IV access, we'll have our IO drill with the appropriate sized needle. And then if all of that else fails, we do have the umbilical vessel catheter that the physicians are able to place. We'll also have our bulb syringes, and then our other pediatric specific monitoring devices with nasal cannulas, pulse oxes, EKG leads, and blood pressure cuffs. We also have our tenderfoots in case we need to do a heel stick or other type of blood drawing for our labs. Oh, and then we also have our pediatric specific oxygen tree. This one will only go up to 1 liter per minute and goes in 0.1 intervals so that we can be much more fine-tuned with our administration. One other thing that we stock in our kids room is our birth pack, and this is actually going to have all of our airway equipment in it already. So when you open it up, we'll have our Mac and Miller blades for 1 and 2, our BVM already in it, and then all of our other delivery accessories, whether it's clamps, bulb suctions, masks and bonnets for other procedures that we need to do. So I'll have that set up in the room, hopefully before the EMS crew gets here. One other thing that you want to keep in mind is your APGAR scores, making sure that you're doing them on arrival and spacing them out from when the birth time was. If there is ample time available, you can also have an anticipated birth weight if the EMS crew is able to give you one, so you could already start drawing up pre-filled syringes with medications that you might anticipate needing, or have your color-based tape out and ready if you're not familiar with birth weights of infants that are just coming in for you, depending on their age and gestational age.
We have a full-term baby born precipitously in the back of the ambulance about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, so they were full term. Do they have good tone?
They do not.
Are they breathing?
They're not.
Okay, let's get the baby down. Let's start doing warming and stimulation. Thank you so much. Do you mind staying just in case we have any other questions for you?
Yep, I can.
Thank you. All right, guys, we've got our baby here. Let's get him all warm and dry. Let's try to stimulate him. All right, let's roll him, get his back nice and dry. All right, let's get these wet linens out of the way. Get our hat on to keep our head warm. All right, Mackenzie, if you can get the baby on there with the pulse ox on the right upper extremity. It looks like our heart rate is 70. We're not going to start chest compressions unless it drops less than 60. I don't see any breathing, so we're going to start to assist respirations. So our goal is going to be 40 to 60 respirations per minute. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3, just like we're in a waltz. We have the baby on room air at this point. We don't need any accessory oxygen. We're just trying to assist ventilation. The heart rate is still 70. We're not going to start any chest compressions unless it drops below 60. So it doesn't look like we're getting any chest rise. So we're going to go ahead and work through MRSOPA. So our mask is an appropriate size, covering the nose and mouth, but not extending up over the eyes. We're going to lift the baby's chin into the mask. Charlie, do you mind helping me adjust the airway a little bit and getting a shoulder roll under our baby? Go ahead and lift up. We're going to put a shoulder roll under to assist the baby, to get the baby into an optimal sniffing position. Breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3. All right, so we're not seeing any chest rise still. So Charlie, do you mind getting a suction? Let's try resuctioning. Go ahead and try to suction out. We're going to open the mouth. That's our S and our O. And then we're going to try breathing again here. Breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3. And if that doesn't work, we're going to adjust the pressure valve and give a little bit more pressure, which is the P of MRSOPA. Breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3, breathe, 2, 3. Okay, looks like we've got some movement. Our baby is starting to cry, starting to breathe spontaneously. Looks like our heart rate is now 100. All right, so we're going to keep watch on this baby. We did not have to move on to our A, which was our adjunct airway, but we were prepared to intubate or place an LMA if we needed to. All right, so we're going to keep a look on everything. Let's get a finger stick or a heel stick for a blood glucose. And we're going to contact the NICU team if they're not already here and let them know we're going to do a handoff.
As with anything, the more you practice, the more comfortable you will be. Practicing resuscitations with simulations and mock codes is very helpful for you and your team to exercise your mind and be comfortable in the space and with the equipment. Doing this requires effort and organization, but it will all be worth it in the end when the real resuscitation runs smoothly. In summary, prepare as much as possible prior to patient arrival. Know your resources and have them ready. Communication is key. Perform non-invasive measures first. Remember MRSOPA for corrective ventilation, and practice makes perfect. Thank you for your time. We hope this helps you and your team be prepared and confident the next time a newborn comes your way.